Hi, my name is Robert Garmez. I head up the research team here at Infotech. Thank you for joining me today for our video session on how to drive down help desk tickets in your service desk operation. You know, when we talk to clients about their service desks, often they're not focused enough on the sheer issue of how many tickets are they seeing month by month. And really, the first thing that we advocate in this whole area is to be cognizant of what your monthly volumes are and what the run rate and pattern is in monthly volumes. So if you think of the time trend over months, is that time trend headed downward, which is what we typically would hope to see, or is it running out of control on you? And this is an important calculation because if you think of staffing levels for your help desk as well as satisfaction levels for your business, the degree to which you're improving your situation month over month versus not can really drive or destroy a lot of value in your organization. So it's an important process and an important philosophy to adopt in terms of how do I really root out all those different snags that are driving issues for the user base, not just one at a time, but on a more global basis. And the way to do that is to really take a root cause approach. So for the heavy hitters, for the issues that you're seeing time and time again, what are the different components, what are the different lenses that you have to look through to really understand what's driving ticket volumes? And what we see are basically four different components or four different dimensions of that problem that need to be looked at individually. The first deals with process. So if you think about those processes that are enacted time and time again in your organization, where are you finding issues that are really starting to drive volume for your help desk? Could it be with password resets? This is a frequent one we see with our client base. In some service desks, up to 25% of tickets can be in the form of just users forgetting their passwords and sending a friendly mail into IT to help with the reset. Well, today there's all sorts of wonderful tools that let you automate that process. Have you gone as far as you can in terms of driving the resets down such that they're no longer driving 25% of help desk volume? Similarly, we look at month end being an example of a process which trips people up because it's not as frequent. So it's not a daily process, obviously, and what does come up, sometimes there's issues that are even less system-oriented and more process-oriented. Are folks properly trained on the process? Is your technology supporting the process as well as it can? So we really advocate this kind of approach to each process to see if there are certain processes really where you're seeing too much volume over time. And that feeds into our third point on process, which is looking at the training that you have in place. And you know, some IT shops view process training as being outside of their domain, but really when you're in charge of the help desk operation, you can't help but look at what kind of business process training is in place. If you think of month end again, oftentimes those issues aren't obviated necessarily through technology improvements, but more so through sheer training so that folks know exactly what's expected day by day during that month end process. So this is all by way of the process view or process lens, if you will, in terms of how to drive down help desk tickets. Another important component clearly is systems themselves. So which are the systems that are really driving the most help desk tickets? Are you finding patterns in terms of either the new systems or those end-of-life systems that are driving tickets for you? Typically, we'll find that a lot of the activity will be in one or two of those categories. So for the new systems, have you properly forecasted what kind of help desk activity you expect to get when you bring that new system online? Are you finding that there's the proper pattern over time such that for the given new system, those help desk tickets are being driven down? If they're following the ladder curve, obviously, you might have a control issue. Something might be out of control with that new system you've implemented. So it's very important to keep track of that and keep on top of that quickly after deploying a new system. For end-of-life systems, those that are coming to the end of their useful lives, we really look at, well, how bad is that curve looking for a given system? So typically, we're up into the top arrow here, and really we want to start thinking about, well, what's the delta, given to where we ought to be? When folks make their end-of-life decisions, oftentimes they think more in terms of what's the cost of replacing the system, what's the cost of retiring that system, what's the cost of training new users. All important considerations. But we think help desk activity is another one that needs to be factored into it. So if older systems are really driving a lot of ticket volumes for you, that needs to be part of the business case for why an end-of-life or end-of-line decision needs to be made. And then finally, just looking at overall system stability. So when you look across the board, are you seeing too many system-oriented issues? Are there things inherent in your network, inherent in your data center, inherent in other aspects of your operation, such that systems aren't as stable as they ought to be? Second in our series of 4 components that you need to look at for driving down help desk volumes. The third deals with users. And if you think of systems being one potential driver of tickets, well, certainly users can be another. And what we mean here is that as you look at volumes by user, oftentimes what you'll see is that there's certain specific user groups or even users by name who are driving a lot of the volume. And here the first calculation we want you to make is what's the skill and what's the will profile of each user? Do they have the skills needed to interact with the systems successfully? Are they properly motivated to be trained, to be brought up to speed on what's expected of them vis-a-vis interacting with these systems? It's a fair question to push some of that over to the system side as well. Are the systems doing a good enough job in being user-friendly and easy enough to use such that users aren't being pushed beyond their actual capacity? So looking at the user profile, seeing if there's certain users or certain groups that are driving tickets will help give you another clue to where ticket volumes, where you may actually be able to find improvements. The power user base, one segment that you can't afford to ignore. So there's 2 aspects to these that you have to be cognizant of. One is just in terms of service levels. So if you think of your SLAs, you want to gear your SLAs as much as you can towards your power users. These are, if you will, your best allies in the organization, let alone the folks that need your help the most. So how well are you catering to their needs, and how much of your ticket volume is being driven by them? We think that's an important calculation to make, but because really tickets driven by power users are more likely to reflect weaknesses in other areas. The other important aspect of your power user base is what we'll call leverage. And what we mean here is if you think of the skill and will issues that we encountered with the user base at large, well, what better way to address those than via your power users? So think of, say, one user who's struggling with a given system. Well, gee, if they're located near a power user, what better way to address their needs than to have them use that power user as their first point of contact before throwing something over the wall at IT? And then finally, we sort of highlight the exec base because we know that represents a challenge in many of our organizations. And the challenge here is trying to cater properly to their needs without over-servicing. So being cognizant of the fact that executives do tend to need quicker response, tend to need, in some circumstances, more hand-holding, but also being cognizant that we really want the executive base to be setting the right framework, if you will, the right frame of mind for the entire organization. If your user base at large sees that executives are being handheld through each and every issue, that expectation is going to carry across. Beyond users, finally, we look at time trends. So are there certain patterns by time of day of the week, by day of the month? Seasonal trends as well are interesting to look at. If you're a retail operation, what happens when you get into your busy season? So we look at, beyond even the systems and the users and the processes, are there just time patterns that you see that can give you a clue to what might be going on? And again, often these time patterns will point back to weaknesses in other areas. If you find that in a given day of the month or a given time of month, you tend to have more ticket volume, and that might point to some sort of process month end perhaps that's acting up. So yet another good cue for where to look at improving your operation. The overall goal here again, we look for a decrease in tickets over time, and really that decrease should be demonstrable in a given quarter. If you're finding you're going through 3 or 4 months of this exercise and you're not seeing tickets decline, chances are you're not looking closely enough at one of these lenses. I want to thank you for joining us today on our video session in driving down help desk tickets, and I want to invite you to join the next in our series of 4 video sessions on this topic, which will deal with leveraging help desk software. Thank you very much.